Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddie Alexander-Grout, and this is the podcast where we talk to interesting people all about their interesting stories. But it's not just about money. It's about business. It's about neurodiversity. It's about family. It's about life. It's about love. It's about alignment. And talking of alignment, I have the wonderful Vicki Chisholm, who for me is just somebody who is so aligned with what she does, but has also been somebody that's been a massive part in me playing the role of being aligned in my own business. Vicki is a business strategist. She is a soul aligned sales strategist. She is an author. She is a coach. She is just somebody who I absolutely love. And also, she held my hand when I went to Big Festoon. I don't like public events. I don't like being actually around people. So, like, Vicki was somebody who has been very, very helpful to me in my journey. And of course, I've also been on her podcast, so I thought it was only fair to invite her onto mine. Vicki, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Tell us a bit about you.
Maddie, thank you for a lovely introduction. And we take these little pieces of ourselves for granted sometimes, because I don't always see myself as that overly supportive person. But actually, knowing that me just being me helped you attend an event where you could meet other people is really lovely. So thank you for sharing that. And for those of you listening, yes, my name is Vicki Chisholm. I'm a crazy woo-woo person. I do all kinds of things that nothing in my world is normal. You will never come into my space and have 2 days the same, not even 2 coaching sessions the same. We are all different. Every day is different. So as a psychic business strategist, I bring a lot to the table in terms of helping you form alignment, because I can sense just by the words that you're speaking to me that you're either all in or you're all out. I can sense the fear, I can sense the doubt, I can sense the lack of clarity, I can sense the miscommunication. I also sometimes really sense when my clients are telling me about this beautiful, wonderful thing that they want to go and do, and ultimately it was not their thing at all. It was something they were told to do and not something they actually want to do. And then they're literally questioning, why is my business not working? And so using my psychic gifts, I'm able to help them find the right path and create more alignment. Hence my book, my podcast, and my membership are all called Radically Aligned, because that is what I'm super passionate about. So thank you for having me, Maddie.
I love that. I really do. And I think there is a lot to be said for being aligned. So I did, and I haven't finished it yet, and I keep meaning to, Vicki's Soul Aligned Sales Strategist course. An accreditation. So, I started it and I was like, this is really, really, really great. But when just life gets in the way, and I've just been very, very busy, but I always think like, this is something I need to finish. Because it's going to add so much value to my business, but also it really does kind of affirm the stuff that I do in my business as well, especially when it comes to visibility. Because if you're not aligned with the thing that you're doing, you cannot show up. It is like, and then if you cannot show up because you're not aligned to something, you can't make the money that you want from it. So alignment leads to cash. And this is something that I talk to the people in my world about all the time. So I just think it's really lovely to have you on. So I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody that comes on this podcast. What is your money story?
Oh, my money story is an interesting one. So how far back should we go here, Maddie?
Wherever you want to start from. Like, I have some people who start from like pre-birth. They talk about past lives and like all sorts of things. So wherever you feel is relevant.
Okay. So I always had an issue with money. Always. I would get it and I would spend it.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, I would get it and I would spend it. There was something in me that said I couldn't save, and there was something in me that was just, it just wasn't. My relationship with money was actually a clear reflection of my relationship with love, and that's what I found out probably about 6 years ago. I'd always been very independent. So at the age of 18, I was earning £2,500 a month, but I was supporting 2 adults. So I was the main breadwinner. The other person didn't work. I was supporting because of ill health. And realistically, the money just constantly went. By the time I paid the rent, the bills, the food, trying to live, I ended up becoming a workaholic just to have cash in the bank. My first real full-time job, I was a care assistant in a elderly mentally ill, no, it wasn't the mentally, it was the residential care home that I was in at that time. And my pay was £2 an hour. I was 16, working 60 hours a week on £2 an hour.
Wow.
So I knew poverty. When I was 16, no, yes, I was 16 at this point. It was before I got the job. I was living in a motel in the middle of nowhere. I'd left home at 15, and in this motel, I had to pay service charges, and I was left with, I think, £15 to feed myself for 2 weeks, and I had a smoking addiction. So my background story is poverty, scarcity, lack, and generally just not having much in the bank.
Yeah.
So as I moved on with life, I didn't know there was such a thing as a money mindset. And it was only when I started my first business and I actually had to verbally ask for the sale that I realised that I had a big issue with receiving money. Going into employment, and this was something that was really quite interesting as well, right? When you're in employment, you go into a job, you get paid, you go home and everything's wonderful, right? When you're in business, you have to go and say, well, actually, I'm going to do that job, but you're going to pay me this much.
Yeah.
I struggled immensely. So I was a qualified bookkeeper, attention to detail, perfectionist, people pleaser. I was the best VA you could possibly have, because if I couldn't do something, I wouldn't finish that job until I found a way, even if it meant sleepless nights, even if it meant that I had to spend hours learning new courses to support my clients. I went all out to fucking do this.
Yeah.
And I think it was in my second or third year of business. I think it was my second. I was introduced to business coaching, and one of my coaches actually turned around to me and she said, Vicky, what would you do if you could have X amount of money? And I was like, no idea. I literally have no idea. And another coach said to me through this training day that we did, I'm going to give her a shout out actually. Her name's Rachel Stone, and she is a leadership development coach. She's up there with the Entrepreneur Circle, Action Coach. She's really quite well known in that area. And she said to me during this course that she ran for the day, where do you want to be in 10 years? And I was like, I don't know. I couldn't answer that question. That day, Rachel gave me an insight to start the journey to changing my life. I had lived through extensive trauma. I was in an abusive relationship, which I wasn't even aware of. I was just in it, didn't know any different. It was just the norm. And that specific day, something inside me said, but what does Vicky want? And I didn't know. I was like, well, I want my kids to be happy. I want to, to be healthy, to have a good life. And she went, okay, but what do you want the business to look like? What do you want your life to look like? And I was like, what do you mean my life? My life? My life doesn't matter. And that was exactly how I felt. My life doesn't matter because I'm not here for me. I'm only on this earth plane for others. And that day was just like, it was over 10 years ago now. And I was like, this is just crazy. Why don't I know what I want? Everybody else in this room was able to sit there and dictate what they wanted. They had these visions, they had this. And I thought, well, I just want the business to be a success and I want my kids to be happy. And I just want to find some peace away from struggle, away from all the crap, really. I just want a different kind of life, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But I wasn't advanced in my journey with the stuff that I am now. So at that time, it was basically like talking to a 17-year-old and saying, what do you want your life to look like? And I'm going, I haven't got a freaking clue, because they haven't experienced life, so they don't know what they want. And my life consisted of children, home, work, cleaning. I had no hobbies. I'd literally stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning to clean. It was my coping mechanism with everything that I was managing. I called it my ADHD hyperfocus, because I didn't know I was doing it back then.
Yeah.
So the money story for me has not been an easy one. It's one that I've had to fight through. It's one that I've had to navigate quite extensively. And through my first business, I hadn't even realised I'd earn over 6 figures from struggling from asking for £10 an hour for my services to turning that business into a 6-figure business. And I hadn't got a clue that I had done it, because I was so avoidant to looking at what was actually happening inside my business. Not great for a qualified bookkeeper, right?
Well, yeah, you say that, but sometimes it's easier to help others than it is to put, to actually do the thing that we do and the thing that we're good at for ourselves.
Yeah. So I went on like this journey with it, and so the pivotal point really was in 2016. I'd left the abusive relationship. I was dealing with the family, resettling, restructuring, and I reached a point in my life where I physically, mentally, and emotionally could not go on anymore. I had reached a point where I had nothing left in me to give. My daughter was going through extensive health concerns. The challenges of co-parenting with someone who'd abused you for over 12 years and then was doing it through your children. My self-worth was at its all-time low, and I had to find a way to pick myself back up again, which then took me on this journey of self-discovery and learning more. So my relationship with money had always been really just so difficult.
Yeah.
But what I also realised through my journey of recovery from the life that I'd lived and creating the changes that I wanted to see was actually I'd been victim to financial abuse. I had been, money as a child was used as bribery. In a past life, money and power was something to fear because of something that happened then. And following from my parents' generational life, my dad came from a family of severe poverty. My mum came from a mix. So her parents never really had any money, but her grandparents did. So there was so much controversial in it, but nobody ever taught me about the value of money, the meaning of money. So I had to go on my own journey, and I had to start understanding my relationship to money. That was my first and foremost. And as an energy healer, I don't even like that word healer. It's just a thing that we say, but it's not actually what we do. So I'm going to reword that. As an energy alchemist and shifter, I had to learn how to recreate my own stories around money. So I went from not being able to sell my services for £10 an hour because I was afraid of asking for the money, of what it meant about me as a person and me not being worthy at all, to signing now multi-5-figure contracts. But what happened during that time when I was going on my own self-discovery and learning about the relationship with money was what I actually realised was my relationship to money actually meant love. If I had money, I was in a state of love. And if I didn't have money, I was unlovable. When I had that epiphany, a lot of things began to change for me. And I started looking at my patterns, I started looking at my habits, I started looking at things and the way my business was being functioning when I was in a really good place and not dealing with all the external dramas and the parental responsibility of family things happening and not dealing with all the crap. Things were really good and stable. But when I wasn't on top form or in my flow, things would drop. And then I'd have to climb myself back out of the gutter again to stay on point. So I had to get to a point where I was like, well, how are you going to make this more consistent for yourself so that you don't have to go on this constant roller coaster of survival? And once you get to that point, that's when I found that the big change happened, because the awareness changed the story, nothing else. Because when you have awareness, you have an opportunity. And this is, I'm going to share a little bit now about my Adapt Breakthrough strategy. So way back when I started doing training in rewiring the brain, accessing the subconscious, and looking at different ways to recover from things that I'd experienced, one thing I learned was with awareness, you get to make a decision, which you can then lead in with the ambition of that decision, which you can then align with the purpose, which you can then take the steps for the transformation. So my Adapt Breakthrough strategy was born through that. And I was like, okay, so what is the awareness? What is it that I'm feeling in this moment? What decision do I get to make now? What am I willing to choose? If I can't make a decision, what's the resistance? So I always had this opportunity to then look at the strategy to scale me to the next steps. So then when I looked at the ambition, it's like, well, if I make the decision to create the change, the ambition is to have this, but is it in line with my purpose, or is it a distraction from my purpose? And then we go into the transformation. How do I want to change this? What do I want the change to look like? So being able to be aware was one thing. But because obviously I'd gone into the spiritual path as well, I'd spent all this time trying to get the gist of manifestation, because I'm hearing all these stories. I'd watched The Secret, I'd done this, I'm doing my daily affirmations. I printed out all these affirmations and put them all over my kitchen. Like, this is where it's, this is the thing. And my mother-in-law came in one day at the time, and this was before I left the abusive relationship. And she just looked and went, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, I'm trying to bring positivity back into our lives. And she just looked at me like I was a point. And she did actually call me quite a few times that, small things like, because I'm such a short person, arsenic,
Oh, wow.
Come in, poisonous things like arsenic as well. I'm like, wow.
That's pleasant.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, actually.
Okay.
So when you were talking then about sort of the kind of the acknowledgement and then the decision.
Yeah.
What would your advice be for anybody who's got ADHD who struggles with decision paralysis? Because I find that in my business, like, I can really help other people to make their own decisions. But one of the things for me, and this is, I have to have a coach, and actually he's more of a mentor, and I ask him to tell me what to do, because I get to crossroads and I'm like, I have to make a decision here. What the fuck am I going to do? Because I'm really shit at decisions, and I often make the wrong one. I've got no gut feelings.
So when it comes to decisions, ultimately, there are two things to do about it. If you're in analysis paralysis about making a decision, you need to confide in someone and get the help. It's either that, or you need to find your own structured way of being able to unpick it. Okay. When I go into analysis paralysis, which I do quite a lot of the time because my brain is information overload and there's too many different paths ahead of me that I could take, so then I never know which one's right. I have to just bring it down and just say, okay, I'm not going to make that decision right now. I'm going to leave this, I'm going to park it, and I'm going to come back to it when I'm not feeling this overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in business, you don't always have that time to be able to go back. And that's where I would say seek some professional support, because without that, we are human at the end of the day, and we need that connection. We need that someone to guide us in the right way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest actually that you go to someone to say, tell me what to do. But what I would do is go to someone.
I find that my clients actually, a lot of the time, they come to me and they say, tell me what to do, because or they say, Maddie, what would you do?
Yeah, see, that's
not
different. Because if they're asking you what would you do, what they're doing is looking at options. But if
Yes.
you're going to someone and they're saying to you, well, you've got to do this to get out of that, that's not going to work for someone with ADHD specifically, especially if they're in analysis paralysis, because they're going to go into demand avoidance. They're going to shut down and go, well, that's not the right path for me.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
you can have a supporter in your business that you can literally just voice note and just say, hey, look, I've come up with this thing. I'm actually struggling to navigate the next steps. What would you suggest I do to help me navigate it? So what I do
Yeah.
in that is actually go back to the client and say, what outcome do you want from this?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
actually start questioning them about the right path for them. And this is where I get a little bit on my high horse with the radical alignment thing, because if we are constantly seeking external validation, then we're learning to not trust ourselves. And
Oh
if we're
my
not
God,
trusting
that.
ourselves, we can't then move forward. So if you are seeking external validation, seek it from someone who's going to help you find the right answer for yourself.
This was something, oh my God, like this was something that held me back in my business for so long. I would go and ask my community for something. I'd have like two versions of a logo and I'd go and ask my community, like, which one should I go for? And everyone would say different things. And I'd be like, oh my God, that just doesn't help. Like,
No, but it does help for marketing purposes. So that's
you know what? Do you know what I did? And this is also where I think spirituality comes into a little bit. Like, and this wasn't a business decision. This was actually something that was. We've got a bit of an echo, haven't we? Can you hear that? No. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So this was something that was a bit of a kind of decision for me from a housing perspective. So we put an offer in on a house just before Christmas, number 6. We'll call it number 6, and I loved it, really, really loved it. But I had a niggle. There was a niggle, right? And the niggle was my office. It was long and thin, and it wasn't square. It wasn't how I'd imagined my office to look like. And I was like, I wish we had this house, but like just slightly different layout. Like I really wanted a slightly different layout, but we put the offer in. Anyway, over Christmas, we got massively messed around, and another house on the same road, 2 doors down, came up. So we went to have a look at it, and it didn't have the loft conversion that we wanted, but it had the price tag we wanted. And the office was a beautiful shape. It already had 3 bedrooms, so if we did a loft conversion, there would be 4 bedrooms. And I came home and I was like, this is so hard because we've got this like stunning house, which is all done, like completely done up, or we've got this blank canvas where we could make it our own and it could be better. And I sat down on the edge of my bed, and next to me was a box that I bought some shoes. I don't know, you might remember that I shared a picture of these beautiful Reebok. They were Reebok classics, but they were pink shiny ones. And I shared a picture on Facebook saying I bought these shoes. Anyway, when they sent them to me, they were the wrong ones. But they were plain with a really nice pink shiny bit on the back. And I was like, for some reason, not wanting to send them back. I didn't know why I didn't want to send them back, but I just had this thing where I was like, I like these. I kind of want both of them. But actually, these, and again, ADHD paralysis, didn't want to send them back. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, because I was like, I'm trying to start a new hobby. It's called gilding. It's basically making things shiny, and it's really exciting. And I looked at it. I was like, if I gilded these shoes, they would be literally my dream shoes. And that was my decision made. I was like, all we need to do is gild the house. We need to make it our dream house. And we had our decision. So we cancelled the offer on the other one, put an offer in on this one. And we're moving in 3 weeks. So like sometimes the universe will tell us the thing that we're supposed to be doing, and that helps. But sometimes I just think for people who have got ADHD, gut feelings aren't always the one.
So I think I would have to challenge that, because it's not always a gut feeling that you're referring to. Sometimes you're referring to the resistance, which is the fear-based feeling, rather than the gut initial reaction. So And this is where I go back to the self-trust thing and knowing yourself enough to know when you are leading with a decision and when you're leading with fear and resistance. So if I just explain a little bit here what I'm doing so that you can take this away as a nugget. Again, this is something that is in my book as well. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, because I do feel that if we can all overcome this piece, we really embody and accept this concept, you'll be able to change your decision-making processes. So you've got people that will say, this isn't in alignment for me, so I'm not doing it. And then you've got people that will say, I'm feeling all this resistance. And then you've got people that will say, this is totally in alignment for me and everything's great. So there are three aspects of the decision-making process: alignment, misalignment, resistance. So what I see happening a lot with business owners, especially us neurospices, is we get into this space of, that's in alignment with me, but I'm going to resist it because I'm afraid of success or afraid of failure. And then they go, well, actually, because I'm not doing the work, I must be misaligned, therefore I'm not going to do it. And actually, that's a real hindrance, because if it's in alignment, because you know this is something that would really help you, but you're choosing to use the terminology misalignment, you're actually preventing yourself from having the success that you want to have.
Yeah.
Whereas if you are aware of the misalignment, I mean, it could be misaligned, right? So let's say, for example, someone invites me to go to another chamber meeting. Absolutely freaking not in a million years. That is not going to work for me. I literally did it about a year ago. It was the worst experience of my life, because it is not the type of networking that I want to be doing.
No.
And it's definitely not in alignment with my work and who I serve, right? That is a definite misalignment. However, if someone was to say to me, oh, there's this fantastic networking event down the road, it's got your dream clients in it, the community that you're going to build and everything else, but I look at the energy or something of the venue for, oh no, I don't want to do that. What I'm actually doing is resisting, because it's somewhere new, it's something different. And what you did with the house move, Maddie, was you actually made a decision based on something that would be aligned for you, because you like being creative anyway, and making something your home is going to be more valuable to you than moving into somewhere that is potentially looking okay, ticking a few boxes.
It was the most beautiful house I think we've ever seen, but there was just this one little niggle for me. It was the office. Like, it just wasn't how I pictured me turning up and doing my lives and all of those things. It wasn't what I wanted.
No. So again, if we go back to the money aspect, we have to look at the relationship with money and doing it through the misalignment, the resistance, and also the aligned processing. So some people will go in, I don't know if you've done it or heard of it, but I'm a big fan of Denise Duffield Thomas and the way that she breaks things down and the way that she teaches things. I'm a big fan, because I like to understand the psychology around things, especially our brains and how we work. I don't believe using the labels as a definition of who we are, but I do believe in being able to say, well, actually, that's a trait of this personality type, therefore this is something that I can do to, so I go from a solution focused way of doing things.
I mean, reading Get Rich Lucky Bitch. Well, I say reading, I don't really read. Listening to it actually changed my money story so much. And for anybody listening, if you haven't read it or listened to it, it is possibly one of the most powerful books I think I have ever come across.
But there's also Killpreneur, which is really good as well. And
I haven't read that yet. I need to do that.
I have read it. I read it after my motorbike accident because I was laid up. It was really nice to read it. And it does give you the chill, I can do things with ease. It's about the mindset shift. So I firmly believe that your relationship with money will always be about your relationship that you have with yourself and love, first and foremost. In the spiritual pathways, it is described as money as a masculine energy. Therefore, if your relationship with the male energy is misaligned, it's time to work on that aspect of things. But I also did Denise Duffield Thomas's SMA. So it's the Sacred Money Archetypes,
Yes.
where you can break it down and you can figure out what type of money personality you have.
Yeah.
And then that you can also use that thing. So I'm a big believer in.
What were you wrote with, just out of interest?
What was I? So alchemist, accumulator, and I think alchemist, accumulator. I don't know. I need to redo it because I've not done it for a while. But alchemist, accumulator were my top two. And I can't remember the last one. So the alchemist within me is like, I can magic things. And then the accumulator in me, from the trauma that I've experienced with the finances, is there, well, we're going to save and we're going to be cautious and we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And the other part of me that goes, nope, that's an all in, we're going there.
I'm actually going to look mine up now because I have mine done. I can't remember what it was.
It changes as well. So as you grow and evolve, your archetype will change. So I'm going to go back and revisit the Money Boot Camp and do my SMA again because I've evolved so much over the last couple of years, and I think it's time that I do that. But I like revisiting the money thing. So to help me on my journey, because I was so crap at receiving anything, I couldn't even receive a compliment, let alone asking for a sale. It was just so hard. So I went and learned and became a law of attraction wealth practitioner. So I can deal with money mindset and the energetics of attracting money and doing all those things. What else did I do? Oh, there's just been loads of things that I've done to help but I did it to help myself initially. And now obviously I get to share all my knowledge. But I just think the money story can change.
Oh God, and this is the thing, and you're the only person that has the power to change their money story is you. And I say this to my clients a lot because, I get people coming to me and they're like, oh, I'm really bad with money. I'm really bad at business. I mean, first of all, they're not bad at money or business. They've got ADHD and they've got a different operating system. And therefore, all of the things that people are doing around money and business are not necessarily the right ones for their brains. Like I spent years trying to learn about money and learn about business as a neurotypical. And of course it wasn't going to work for me because it's, and this is what this tattoo represents. It's all about loving your soundtrack, but it's also a reminder that I shouldn't try and shove a tape into a CD player because that's what I spent a really long time doing. And so I'm going to ask you, what would you think my archetypes would be? And I'll see if you get them right.
I have to say a little bit of a celebrity.
Yeah.
I do think Maddie's a bit of a celebrity. I don't know if I would go down the accumulator route.
No.
A ruler, maybe?
No.
I'm definitely ruler. That is one that I forgot. And I can't remember them all because it's been so well. But celebrity and...
celebrity, connector and nurturer. That's what I was.
Perfect.
And actually, I feel like those are really aligned for me.
Yeah.
We should, in fact, I've got a lady who does Sacred Money Archetypes. I'm going to get her on and we'll, do it.
Starting to remember mine now. So it was, so they would join in scores, they would join. So alchemist, accumulator, maverick, ruler.
Yeah.
And then I had the nurturer and connector as my third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's honestly, for anybody who hasn't done it, it's such an interesting exercise. And there are lots of people. In fact, I've had a couple of people on in the past actually who we've talked. In fact, I know two Sarahs who do Sacred Money Archetypes.
Eloise Burton does it as well, and she does about money. Yeah,
and actually, she's meant to be coming on at some point. We discussed it ages ago because she's quite local to me. So yeah, I'll get her on. We'll talk about that. But I think it's really interesting to know. But also, it's again the same thing where, like, if you go back and Vicky's talked about these impressions and these thoughts and feelings she's had around money from being a child. And changing from being in a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset is the thing that changed everything for me. And it needed a catalyst. Mm-hmm. So it had to be that first thing. Like, I think it was the fact that I got my first 10K client. That was the thing that made me go, oh my God, I can actually charge this much money and people will actually pay it. And I got that over the line. And then, like, last year, I made 107 grand in my first year.
Mm.
And, you know, for some people that might not sound like a lot, but for me, coming from, you know, my grandparents were rich, but they still are. Well, one of them is, one of them's dead. One of them's on the way out. Um, it's not funny. It's really not funny. I put her into a care home this week, so it's been a bit of a traumatic one. But the thing is, right, you know, we never got handouts from them. It was always we had to make our own way. Like when my parents were struggling to pay the mortgage, when my dad's business was failing, like they didn't give us handouts because they didn't want us to not learn the lessons. So although we had generational wealth, we didn't actually see that generation wealth. You know, it was we had to make our own ways. And when you have that penny drop moment where you're like, actually, all of this has changed for me.
Yeah,
You know,
completely.
for me, earning 107 grand in a year was like, oh my god, you know, I've made it, and I, you know, I still have to check myself and go, actually, that you haven't completely made it. Yes, you're successful in your eyes, you're successful in other people's eyes, but there are going to be some people who are like, you know, closer to seven figures who'll be like, oh well, what's she fucking talking about? You know, her and her 107 grand, but it's all relative.
It
You know,
doesn't matter. And I think this
no,
is really, really, really fucking important. Just
yeah,
because someone else has gone out there and earned seven figures doesn't mean anything about you as an individual. Because
no,
I have seen some of these multi seven figure business owners and the way that one, they treat the clients or they ghost the
mm,
clients or they take money and just don't deliver.
mm.
They're all in it for the cash. I have met very few of those business owners that actually give a shit.
Yes. And this is the one thing, and I think this is why it's so important to stay aligned to your values, your mission, and your purpose, because as you grow and scale, like you don't do like, I mean, I did like, you know, I've done a business strategist course. You know, I'm a qualified business strategist. Nothing in there teaches about your values, your mission, and your purpose,
See,
and
this
that
is
is
why
why it's so important, because you can't scale. Like, I mean, you could go and scale following traditional business advice. You can go and scale, you can go and make that multi-million pounds, but you are going to change as a person. You're not going to be aligned to every step of your process. And I would much rather do each step like it's climbing a stair. And, you know, maybe I'll fall back a stair, maybe I'll go up again. I would rather do that than going on an escalator to the top and somewhere falling off. You know, I just,
absolutely. So this is why I created the Soul Aligned Offers and Sales Strategist certification, because we are not living in a world where our brains are functioning with old processes anymore.
yeah.
Therefore, the training that we receive needs to be on a different level. And this is
Mm,
where the certification that I launched last year is taking heart centered leaders from not being able to generate the sales in their business to finally having an offer suite that actually aligns with their core values,
yeah,
their mission, their and being able to deliver in a way that they know is in their heart-led center, rather
absolutely.
than doing the traditional car salesman vibe of, oh, the cheeky chappy, get I can get anyone to buy anything kind of attitude, because not everybody is right for you, and not
No,
right for the
no.
program, and not everybody's going to want to purchase those things. So this is, yeah, I'm just going to go off on another tangent here.
But
I
we could, and
but
we could talk about this for hours, and I feel like you definitely need to come back on. But yeah, I mean, I think this is something that business owners get bogged down with. It's like they have to make sales, and they don't care who they sell to; they have to make sales. I do not go by those rules. If you want to buy from me, you have to be aligned with me. You have to know, know the stuff. Like, I'm so super upfront about the fact that I swear like a sailor. I will tell you things that will be really uncomfortable. And if you're not okay with that, that's totally cool, but I'm not going to be the person for you. It has to be right. And if somebody comes to me for something and it's not right, I've got to total armory of people who do very similar things to me that I am more than happy to recommend to. I had someone come to me the other day and they're like, Maddie, can you run my TikTok for me? Not a fucking chance. Go to Sound Barefoot. No. Like, I am not that person. It's like, oh, Maddie, can you help me to grow my Instagram? I'm like, yes, I can. I can help you to grow your Instagram. But you want Lindsay McGlone. She is the Instagram queen. I am just not for everybody. Come to me for TikTok. Come to me with ADHD business strategy. Come to me with other things. But I am not someone who is going to pretend I'm something so that I can make a sale. It's just not right. Mm. And also, it's the same with I don't time pressure people on offers. So, for example, like my own courses, when I affiliate for other people, if they're like, you have to give a bonus, you have to give a bonus. I'm like, cool, that's fine. But it's not going to be a bonus that time pressures somebody. I'm not going to say, right, sign up within the next 24 hours and you get the world on a stick, because my people have got ADHD and I just don't align like that. By the time this podcast comes out, we're probably going to have seen the end of one-to-many. I'm an affiliate for one-to-many. I have been for the last 3 years. I will not do a 24-hour car open bonus. It's just not in my wheelhouse. Like, I do, and all of my offers come out at the same time, because a lot of my audience are autistic. They want to see what they get up front. It's just about sticking with your values and sticking with who you are and being aligned with that. And if it means that you miss out on money, you miss out on money. Like, for Amplify Your Influence, which was my course that I did before Christmas, and I know that this isn't the way that normal people do marketing. I had no cart open. Instead of keeping, I didn't have a timer. I didn't pressurize anybody. I had calls with people. I gave them extra time to think about stuff. My cart was open for 3 weeks. Like, that was hard. Because, you get the dip in the middle where, like, nobody buys anything. I'm like, everybody hates me. This is so horrendous. But I ended up getting 25 people signed up for that. And actually, that was the thing that made me go, oh, my God, I actually only want 25 people each time because it's a perfect amount. Mm. Like, I don't want to do one-to-many, as in I don't want, 7,000 people doing my course, because I can't give my all to that. And the way that I make a difference for my clients is by giving them support and holding their hands. Mm. And this is why I love supporting on one-to-many, because everybody who signs up with me gets that hand holding and the support, which is the thing that people know me for. Mm. So anyway, I went off on a tangent.
I'm right there with you, Maddie, because yeah. I have small containers.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't just give a small piece and then expect you to just get on with it. I'm in this with you, okay?
Yes.
If you are struggling, I want to know you're struggling. I don't want you sitting behind the scenes going, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. No. I want you in there. But in larger groups, I can't be the one to go, you're being a little bit quiet. Become, what's it? I'm not going to notice because there's too many people. So this is why I keep my group small. And it's also why I do like my business development days and keep the numbers small there as well, because I want you to come into that and do the work for your business. And I want to be able to support you with the questions that you've got. I want to be able to, if I need to, psychically channel where you're going and psychically bring in the next piece for you.
Where am I going? Tell me where I'm going.
Where you're going, Maddie. We'll see. But, being able to psychically channel the next steps is like, I couldn't do that for 100 people in a room.
No.
I've got to be mindful with who's coming into my space and when. So my signature program is capped. My in-person business development days, they're capped. They're the days where I'm really wanting, and a lot of the time I find that I want to set success more for them than they do for themselves.
Oh no, I feel that.
I feel I need to be that person to give them the belief in themselves to be able to do it. But we can only do that by breaking things down and being clear and structured and mapping things out differently. So yeah, I hear you. I prefer the small things, but I can also do the big things, and I have done the big things. But I think we have to just, again, it's alignment. What makes it feel better for you?
Exactly. And on that note, thank you for being my guest today. It's been an absolutely wonderful conversation. Where can people find you?
You can find me on the gram, which is I am Vicki Chisholm, or you can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, which is vickichisholm.com. You can tune into my Radically Aligned Business podcast.
Yes.
And you'll also find me on Facebook. So I am pretty much everywhere. You just got to choose your platform, and if I'm active on there, because some of them I'm not as active as I want to be, but hey, I'm human.
You can change that. I mean, I always say to people, like, you know, you don't have to overwhelm yourself. Like, as long as you've got a presence somewhere, and maybe
absolutely.
post a month so that people don't think that you're dead, you know, that's always a good one. But yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Vicki. It's been amazing to have you. If you are listening to this podcast and you like what you hear, please subscribe, please share it with your friends. My book, Mad About Money, is currently out. You can pre-order it. In fact, it might even be available to actual order by the time this comes out. So go and check it out. It's on Amazon. It's on Waterstones. For every person who buys a book, a happy person does a happy dance somewhere very, very special. And that will be me, because I'm super grateful to everybody who buys it. Download Mad About Money app, go and follow me on wherever your local platform is, because I am literally everywhere apart from Snapchat, because that's for children. I'm Maddie Alexander-Grout, and we will see you next time.